Can you hear me now? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Wait a minute, let me find a good signal. I've got this new iPhone 6. Problem is it bends when you put it in your back pocket. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to put that. Can y'all still see the screen? Okay. Well, good. Well, guys, we're going to be talking about trending topics for the next 4 weeks. And in order to do that, I am going to start us off with the topic of chasing success. And so we're going to see some really cool animation up there that's really high tech. And what I'm going to need to do as soon as that goes on is I'm going to need 2 contestants because we are going to do a game show to start off our time. So I'm going to need a guy, and I'm going to need a girl, and I'm going to need a coin flipper. So if we can start the game show music. There we go. All right, here we go. I need a guy on this side of the room. Let me do this. Let me get a girl. Let me get Morgan up here. Let me get a girl from this side. I need a guy from this side. Let me get the chairman of the Ills Board. He's already been up here once. Okay, Morgan, you're gonna stand on this side. You're gonna face your component. Dan, you're gonna face. Shake hands in the middle. Okay. Now I'm gonna need an unbiased coin flipper here. So if I can get Mr. Soderquist, can you know how to flip a coin good? All right. So I'm gonna get you. If you can stand up here, we're gonna flip the coin. They're gonna do best out of 5. Now here's the trick. Everybody, your success depends on Morgan choosing well. So Morgan's going to choose first, heads or tails, and then it's going to go to Dan. This side of the room, your success depends on Dan, okay? So you really got to get into it, okay? All right, the side that wins gets free lunch, okay? So, all right? So no pressure, Morgan. Here we go. All right, so pick your side, heads or tails? Tails, go ahead and flip that coin. All right, good catch. It is tails! Alright, that is one. Alright, Dan, it is your go. Choose.
I will choose tails also.
Alright, tails. It is heads. That is 2 for Morgan. 2 for Morgan. Alright. Morgan, you're up again.
Let's go heads.
Heads. It is tails. Dan is on the board. Team Dan on the board. Alright. Alright, so we're 3. We've got 2 more. It's anybody's game. Morgan.
Why do I just go yes?
Did you just pick? Okay. Back to Dan. Back to Dan. Sorry. That's why I got Mike up here to keep me honest. All right, Dan. Oh.
Fumble.
It is tails. All right, so that's 3 for Morgan. We're going to keep going, though. We're going to keep going just to make sure. All right, so last one. Heads. It is heads. All right. Thank you guys for being great contestants. Dan, go back. We have a vacuum cleaner for you. And Morgan is winner. This side of the room, you are going to get free lunch today. The bad news is the losing side has to make them lunch. So, all right. Now, the reason why we do this little illustration is this. Many of us have been chasing success at some time in our life, okay? But is the way that we go about chasing success any better than just flipping a coin? Right? Because as we were going along here, and as you could see, the tide was turning for Team Morgan. Some of you on this side were going, I'll go up and call the next one, right? But here's the thing that you already know. It's still just a 50-50 chance, right? It's still just a 50-50 chance. So, if we did a best out of 100, it could have been a completely different. Right? Because eventually the odds are going to even themselves out. You're going to get some right, you're going to get some wrong. Okay? And this is much how life is. So, as we talk about chasing success, are we doing any better than just flipping a coin as it comes to making decisions and going about life? And so, as we get into this, I want you to just continue to think about that process of that 50-50 chance. And is there a better way? And of course, you know where I'm going. So let's see where I'm going to take you. So first, how many of you like a true story? You like true stories? Everybody likes a true story. This one's really good, and Lou's going to like this one. There was a pastor who was driving in L.A., and he was behind an old man, very, very old man, who was probably too old to be driving at this point. 75 plus years old, we're guessing. True story. And the old man, oh no, I just made some enemies. Listen to the rest of the story, you'll get my point. Okay. The old man doesn't see a cyclist who is riding by, and he bumps the cyclist, sending the cyclist off careening and injuring him, but not injuring him badly. Now the cyclist comes up, and he is rightfully upset, very upset. In fact, he is enraged. True story. He goes up to the old man, pulls him out of the car, and begins beating him on the side of the road in broad daylight, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in LA. Now this pastor is the one directly behind the elderly man, and he is now conflicted. He gets out of his car, and he puts himself between the enraged man and the elderly man. And now he is taking the brunt of most of the blows. And out of desperation, the pastor turns one uppercut into the jaw of the infuriated man and knocks him out cold. And everybody applauding, right? Yes! Okay, now, the cops come, they clean up everything, and the man goes free. And of course, the pastor tells the story, and everybody who hears the story is going, man, I wish that would happen to me. Like, I wish I could just one time, like you've got a free pass to really unload. How many guys would love just once, just one time, and that women too, and those be like a spider monkey, right? Okay, and so here we go. How many of you feel like you would have acted in that situation? Raise your hand if you think, hey, I would have done something. I would have done something. Okay? Now, how many of you are tempted to raise your hand because you know that the outcome was successful? He knocked the other guy out, and he was the hero. What if I told you that instead of him knocking that guy out, that guy knocked him out? Now would you be raising your hand? It would at least give you pause. And we all know, because we've heard these types of stories before, they don't always end like that, do they? Sometimes a person road rage and all this, and nobody gets out and does anything. Or a woman is screaming in an alley, and nobody even looks out the window or calls 911. Sometimes we just freeze. Okay? So here's the thing. None of us want to be cowards. None of us want to find ourselves in that situation where we didn't do the right thing at the right time. And so, don't you want to be courageous? Don't you want to be successful? The answer is, of course, yes. Revelation 21:7 says this, those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the violent, murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, all the liars, they will be consigned to a fiery lake of burning sulfur. And this is the second death. Wow. Like, man, that really turned quickly, didn't it? That escalated quickly. And here I have a picture, because I looked up, I said, burning like the sulfur. Like, I believe this is in Indonesia. There is an actual burning lake of sulfur. It's like a river of sulfur. But it's a reality. Like burning lakes of sulfur, rivers of sulfur actually exist. But we would sometimes look at the Bible and doubt that that's a reality, that God's really going to eventually, that people are going to be consigned to that. And we would hesitate to want to believe that. But yet it exists even in our world. Is it not possible that it exists on the other side? And so, as we're looking at this, none of us want to be cowards. We all want to succeed in life. Due to the challenging messages that are coming up over the next few weeks, trending now, I want this first message to focus on what Christians are for. Because the limited exposure that we get in the news is mostly about what we are against. Okay? And so, first, let's look at the American success story. Now, because I am not necessarily an expert on success, I have taken this information from Dr. Linda Seeger. She's the author of A Better Way to Win, Connecting, Not Competing for Success, and Spiritual Steps on the Road to Success, Gaining the Goal Without Losing Your Soul. She began her business as a script consultant in 1981, has received a Lifetime Achievement Awards for her contributions to the film industry. So by that, I assume she's been somewhat successful. She says this on the topic of success. Worldview definitions of success are this. America tends to define success by money, by what money can buy. We are known around the world as being a rather materialistic country, always striving after things, and defining success by the accoutrements that money can buy, such as snazzy cars, and the size of our homes, designer clothes, all that sort of thing. And that's just what we get, more things. This doesn't mean more fulfillment or contributing to make the world better in some way. It simply means more things. Other countries define success more in terms of whether their work supports their family, if they enjoy their work, or if it gives them an opportunity to spend time with their family and have a balanced life. So the second parameter is success and effectiveness. So I want you to see, where do you maybe lean this way? Success and effectiveness. For some, success is defined by effectiveness. The question is, are you making things happen? Are they achieving project goals? Are they contributing in a way that adds value to the project? And success for them means the project becomes better as a result of their participation. They can see the results, they feel fulfilled by their work, but also their work fulfills others, either because the product is useful or because the service they provide is helpful. Some of you can relate to that. How about success and joy? Some define success by whether their job suits them and by how much joy they have as a result of their work. They define it by the joy they feel when they do the work, the joy they feel when they finish the work, and the joy that others feel as a result of their work. Success and balance. Some define success by some sense of balance they have between their work lives and the rest of their lives. For them, work is not what success is about. They believe that life needs to be balanced and that work is not meant to be the only thing in our lives. John Woolman, an American abolitionist, cut back on his successful work as a tailor because he wanted to be free of cumber, a phrase we don't use here today. When his work was getting so cumbersome, it was controlling him and left him no time for other things of value in his life, he did not feel successful. And so, he changed it. So how many of you would say that the drive for success has sometimes led to a frenetic lifestyle? Frenetic means fast-paced, lacking control. I looked it up. As well as illness. How many of you have ever become ill because you've worked too hard? The stress even, maybe. Or you've begun to not pay attention to the values that make a good life because success has driven you past the ability to see and balance those things. For some, we want our life to be defined by success and that we make a difference. That's probably a lot of you here today. Ultimately, define success by how our lives will be summed up at our funeral. Will attendees be talking about how much money we made? Or will a person even say, good riddance to a failure as a human being? Those are Linda's words, not mine. Or will they be talking about the person's contributions, how they blessed others? How they blessed a friend, a coworker. For most, success is ultimately defined by the good that has been contributed under this parameter, and by what is remembered about someone who has finished the work. Has the person made a good difference? Think of that for a second. What do you really want people to say about you at your funeral? What do you really want to be remembered for? A lot of times if you walk through cemeteries, you'll see on the markers mother, the tombstone marker, father, things of that nature. How about servant? Servant of the name above all names. King of kings. Lord of lords. Lion from the tribe of Judah. Bright morning star. Lord of the living and the dead, Alpha and Omega, Jesus Christ. Mother Teresa's gravesite reads this from John 15. Love one another as I have loved you. Here's a typical American definition of success. The favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors. The accomplishment of one's goals. The attainment of wealth, position, honor, or the like. For many of us, we would nod our heads. That sounds like success. But I submit to you today that that is not enough for a maturing Christian. It is not. So here's an illustration that I found that might help. I remember a woman's response when we had met years ago. After having dinner with her and her husband, I said to her, I believe you are one of the most gracious people I have ever met. She smiled and said, thank you for noticing. I've dedicated it to Christ. Notice, she did not deny her graciousness. She confirmed it. Oswald Chambers says that worship is when you give your best to God. This was her best. So she gave it to God as worship. The issue at the heart is accepting perhaps a worm theology. Stay with me. Scripture makes a statement about our human condition, makes statements about our human condition both complimentary and critical. The problem is that we are quick to accept the negative. We have a harder time accepting the positive. That God made man only a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. Psalm 8:5. Those who are most comfortable losing readily picture themselves not as children of a great God, but as worms. Now, compared to God, we are worms. But that's not how he sees us. He made us from dust, but he did not intend for us to live there. Do you agree with that? Before we go any farther, then, let's define real success. Because many, I believe, have a wrong understanding of it. For Christians, success can never be measured by money. When people say to me, that man's worth $10 million, that tells me he's wealthy. It doesn't prove that he's successful. In some case, it would mean even the opposite. For instance, if Mother Teresa, whom I consider a tremendous success, confessed that she was hoarding $1 million, I'd think she was a hypocrite. Money would prove her a fraud, not a success. The next slide, we want to look at this. Success. The measurement of success is simply, this one's worth writing down. For those of you that aren't note takers, this is where you want to start taking notes. The measurement of success is simply the ratio of talents used to the talents received. What are you doing with what you've got? Plus, who are you becoming? This isn't just a measure of efficiency, but it is a process of growing in Christ. You doubt me? Let's look at the parable of the talents. In Matthew chapters 24 and 25, this records the Lord's heart of compassion, love, mingled with unwavering holiness. This section of Scripture, including the parables of the talents, constitutes final warnings, prophecies, encouragements to his people, Israel, prior to his departure. Christ has departed, but he is returning. We're right in this. He who is their Lord is leaving for an undisclosed period of time. Are we not there? He is delegating to them the responsibility as stewards to care for his kingdom. Is that not us? The parable of the talents, Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, impresses on them the weight of that responsibility and the serious consequences of neglecting to understand and apply his instructions. There is also a message to all mankind. You know the parable, right? The man leaves, and he leaves 5 talents with one, 2 with another, and 1 with another. The first 2 double their investment, but one buries it because he says he's afraid of the man who gave the wealth. Okay? So here's the universal application. From the time of creation, mankind, each individual has been entrusted with resources of time and material wealth. Everything we have comes from God and belongs to him. We are responsible for using those resources so they increase in value. As Christians, we have additionally the most valuable resource of all, the Word of God. If we believe and understand him and apply his Word as good stewards, we are a blessing to others, and the value of what we do multiplies. We are accountable to the Lord for the use of his resources. And everything we have, smarts, personality, work ethic, material riches, are all from his generous and benevolent supply. Okay? So, I'm going to attempt to impress on you 2 parameters of success that matter immensely to God, but less so for many of us, and to American society, almost not at all. So, what do we do with this? The first is discipleship, and the second is holiness. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to dive into creation and evolution, same-sex attraction, cohabitation, marriage, and social networking, social media. All topics with as many opinions as there are people. I cannot in good conscience ask others to make decisions based on God's standard of holiness if I do not first ask us to do the same. There is no more room for hypocrisy or creature comforts in God's holy church. There is no room for hatred, self-righteousness, legalism, or the like. So, for the rest of our time, I'm going to ask all of us to take a very sober account of how these topics pertain to you, to me, on an individual basis. And hopefully when we come back together here next week, we will come with a more clear resolve to do as Jesus commanded. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and love one another as Christ has loved us. You cannot reach your enemies for Christ. You can only reach your friends. So go and make friends. So, here we go. What is your decision-making process? What is your decision-making process? It's as simple as this, guys. If God is there and He has spoken, has He revealed His heart on your situation? If God is there and He has spoken in His Word, has He spoken His heart to your situation? So here's a few topics that might touch on. Holiness, leisure, work, community, friendship, discipleship, stress, human value, money, sex and sexuality, marriage, divorce, forgiveness, compassion, love, the end of days, the end of life, loss, the purpose of your existence, suffering, blessing, your giftedness, children, grace, time management, reconciliation, freedom, slavery, adoption, success. And we can go on and on and on. God has spoken on all of these things. So, did I leave anybody out in the room? Has one of these touched pretty much everybody? I hope so. So then, what is a disciple? Here's my definition. I hope it'll be yours. A disciple is a wholehearted follower of the life and teaching of Jesus Christ. Please focus on wholehearted. That means everything you do it like Jesus. Invest like Jesus. Invite like Jesus. Bring people together like Jesus. Shepherd like Jesus. And here's the verse we're going to build our discipleship model on. It comes from 2 Timothy 2:2. God made it easy for us to memorize. 2 Timothy 2:2. It says this: You have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people, who will be able to pass them on to others. That's discipleship, isn't it? You have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people, who will be able to pass them on to others. That is discipleship. So I'm going to give you now, keep writing notes. Here are 5 components that will aid you in spiritual growth, and 5 stages of spiritual growth that I want all of you to take a very close look at, because you're in one of them. And you decide where you fit. Do not grade your neighbor. This is for you. This is for me. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. 5 components of spiritual growth. The first one is practical teaching. Action-oriented teaching. You are not here to make your brain bigger. You're here to make your heart bigger. And your heart getting bigger will force you to act, because you will be compelled by Christ. Not by what you think is right or what you think is wrong. Providential relationships. God bringing individuals into our lives. Sometimes these are just for moments, and sometimes they're for years. But you can probably look back on at least 1 or 2 providential relationships in your past that have helped you grow, or that perhaps have kept you from growing. And I'm going to tell you this: you cannot grow in Christ by yourself. If you are isolated, you are a sheep gone astray, and wolves are at your door. Return to the flock with haste. You are a target. Private disciplines, prayer, exploring the Bible on your own, private devotional life. Number 4, personal ministry, being used by God. If you're not doing something, start something. Because this is a component of spiritual growth. You are only keeping yourself from growing. And then 5th, pivotal circumstances, defining moments. These come in many forms. Some good, some very, very challenging. Okay? So, here's something I want to leave with you before we get into this next thing. Transformation. One of the Father's purposes is transformation. This happens when we are constantly drawing nearer to His presence. And here's a principle that I've come to find is true. I hope you will agree. Transformation happens better in circles than in rows. Transformation happens better in circles than in rows. It's great that you're here and you're all in rows. You're hopefully going to be touched by the Spirit of God through what He's going to share in His Word today. But if this is your church experience, it is lacking. It is not enough. And you will not become transformed. You will struggle more than you need to. That doesn't mean that you're not going to struggle in circles. But that when you're in a circle, there's an eye looking back at you from across the room that can identify with your struggle and that can help you in that struggle. You doubt me on this one, go to Acts 2:42 through 47. They continually met and were devoted to prayer, the apostles' teaching, to breaking of bread, and so on. They did it daily. 5 stages of spiritual growth. Keep taking notes. The first one is spiritually dead. The traits of a spiritually dead person would be this, that they're broken and they're unaware, or maybe they are aware. They're lost, probably unaware of it. They're living out their feelings. Anybody know one like that? The phrases that they might say, I believe there are many ways to heaven, or that there is no heaven. I'm a good person. I think there may be a higher power, but I'm too busy for a care group, home group, ABF, Sunday school, church. What would it benefit me? The second stage is infancy. Traits. They are typically still the Lord of their lives, confused about what truth is, or beginning to learn truth. They might say things like this, Christians are hypocrites. I'm a good person. A loving God would never send me to hell. The church just wants my money. I'm too busy for church, care groups, home groups, small groups, ABS. The times aren't convenient. If you're in one of these first 2 stages, I don't want to make you feel bad in any way. But I want you to know that there is a God who loves you and doesn't want you to stay there. Only He can move you along in this process. And so I'm going to try to show you now with the remaining time that we have how that's possible. Because step 3, and more of us are in this category, I think, is that they're growing in their relationship with God. They're building relationships with other believers. They're developing habits of Bible study and prayer. They're plugging into relational environments, those are the circles, for the purpose of discipleship. They're giving of their time and money. Phrases they might say, I love my church because I feel like I belong. My small group is great. I feel so welcome there. Stage 4, young adult. They're becoming less self-centered and more other-centered. They're beginning to see themselves as ministers, tithing and giving of their time from a place of thankfulness and love, understanding the kingdom purpose of branching their care group or home group, whatever you call it. They might say this, I am visiting Bob in the hospital tonight rather than going to the movies. I'm serving in the nursery so others can attend service. I need to branch my home group, small group, ABF, but no one else is ready to lead. Stage 5 is parent. Mature disciple of Jesus, but continually growing and developing in their personal relationship with God as a disciple of Jesus Christ. Skilled at assessing where others are in the discipleship process and getting personally involved to help them grow and develop. Understand their personal role as one who needs to intentionally invest in others, making disciples who can make disciples. 2 Timothy 2:2. Remember, it's easy to remember. Becoming a coach, a Paul, to develop other players and leaders. So what stage are you in? We've covered them all. Which one stood out the most? And I'm not here to judge you in any of that, but I want you to know where you're at. And what we've said is transformation happens better in circles than in rows. So, here's some things that you can do. Here's how God has summed up human success, in my estimation. Okay, there's two pillars here. And in the first one, God has said, if you want to be successful in my economy, love God. That's number one. And then love others. That's two. Pretty simple, right? Just two-step process. Now, if you're in on the secret with me, you realize this is not as easy as we think, is it? Because we like to love ourselves more than we like to love God. Okay? And so, when I see Jesus, and I look at how he lived his life, which is how we should all be living, who we should all be looking to. When he called the early disciples, you know what he said to them at first? He just said, come and see. Come and see. Peter, come and see. John, come and see. There was no miracle yet. There was no water turned to wine. That was his first miracle. And they were there to see it. He just said, come and see. For those of you that have been in the church for a few years, you've come. You've seen. If you're still here after a couple of years, you've probably seen something that's caused you to keep coming. Because it's not convenience, right? We're always asking you to do stuff, dig in your pocket, serve, right? I know you just thought of Mary Beth, didn't you? But you know what? She knows this, and she knows that that's where it's at. That's where you're going to grow. It's part of growing, is serving. Am I right? How many of you have grown because you serve? All right? Good, I'm glad you took the bait. Because after you've been walking with Jesus for a while, when you get to the end, when you get to John 21, when he confronts Peter, he says, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep. Tend the flock. Feed my sheep. He says, you've come and you've seen me. You know who I am. What did he do? What is a disciple? A wholehearted follower of Jesus Christ. Wholehearted follower of the life and teaching of Jesus Christ. What was the life of Jesus? He said, come and see, and then he came and died. Why should we think we're any different? You weren't expecting that. That's the hard part. I'm not saying that any of this is easy. I'm not saying success is easy. I'm not saying that I'm successful under these parameters. But I know what they are. And I know if I'm going to be successful in any measure, I've got to love God. I've got to love others. I've come and I've seen. Now I have to come and die. So, for those of you that are visiting us today, or you know now. Okay, so, but hey, don't be discouraged here, because this gets better. There are 3 people that every one of you needs in your life for this to happen. Because I don't trust that it's happening in all of our lives. I know how hard this is. Okay? There are 3 people that every one of you need in your life. No excuses. Here's the American way. I'm the exception. You're not. None of us are. He was the exception. So who do you need? You need a Paul in your life. Someone that ignites your passion for God's work. You need an Epaphroditus. Someone who is involved with your passion for God's work. You could also put Barnabas in there. You don't have to use Epaphroditus. You could find a female like Lydia. You could find a female like Priscilla and Aquila. And I get confused with them. So just Philippians 2:25-30 reveals to us a little bit about Epaphroditus in case he's new to you today. This is Paul. What Paul says about him. May he say the same about us. I have thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, and fellow worker, and fellow soldier, and your messenger, and minister to my need. For he has been longing for all of you, and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death. But God had mercy on him, and not only him, but also on me, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. These guys were tight. I am the more eager to send him. Therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy and honor, such men. For he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. That's a bit of a jab. That's an Epaphroditus. Someone that will get in to fight with you. Someone that you've been shoulder to shoulder with in life. You need an Epaphroditus and you need a Timothy. Someone you can infuse with your passion for life and for ministry. A young believer, a growing disciple. Think hot tea on this one. Water is never the same once it's been infused with tea leaves. It is no longer water, though water is still present. What has happened? Infusion has happened. Okay? You want to infuse people with your passion for God. So, do you have those three people in your life right now? Then that's what your homework is. Because I can tell you, if there's some Pauls in this church, they're ready and willing to go. They're ready and willing to go. Where are you going to find an Epaphroditus? You're going to find them serving, working. Right? And you'll identify Timothy's when you're around here. You'll begin to see the potential in each young believer in this room. And sometimes it's younger than you think. So 3 things that you must do. So those are 3 people that you need in your life. Here's 3 things that you must do. No exception. You must invest in people. You must invite people and you must enfold people. Everybody in the room. No exceptions. Going door to door is great, but it is not really investing in people. At best, you can move someone from death to infancy, but you cannot produce a wholehearted follower of Jesus Christ. You can go to a pride parade and hold up signs, but tell me something. Have you ever tried to give directions to a dead man? They are amazingly unresponsive. Christians do not have enemies because we can't win enemies to Christ. We can only win friends. So I think God is calling us to do more, and investing in people takes much more time and commitment. But you saw with that baptism what investment produces. That was an investment that will continue in the life of a human being for Christ. Invite people to do life with you. Don't just invite them to this building. This place isn't the church, you are. You want to invite people to church? Invite them into your life. What if they say no? Then keep investing in them. And ask the Lord to give you favor with them the next time you invite them. That's how you'll be successful in God's economy. Enfolding them is just shepherding people, because transformation happens better in circles than in rows. And so here's a little cool thing that I did a while back to show you what that's like. All right, that's what happens when you enfold. Boom, people move. All right? When we enfold people, they become in. When we don't enfold people, they don't feel loved. They move on. And they may not move on to another church. They may just move on to another relationship. Enfolding is important. So, before I was a pastor, I attended Bible studies. That's where I grew. That's where I encountered Paul. I was a Timothy. Before I was a pastor, I was speaking to hundreds of homeless men and sharing the gospel, but not as someone who was better than them. Before I was a pastor, I was leading a small group, and I can tell you, I was not a very good teacher. But God used it to grow me. The rest were guinea pigs. Before I was a pastor, I had a Timothy in my life that I met with every week. Before I was a pastor, I went to a mosque to learn firsthand what Muslims believed. You know what I found in there? A man as white as me, with a son just like my kids, wearing a Boy Scout uniform, reading the Quran. Before I was a pastor, I attended a Buddhist temple to learn firsthand what Buddhist believes. Before I was a pastor, about 50 weekends out of the year for 3 years while in seminary, Jill and I served Buddhists, Muslims, Hindus, atheists, and everybody else breakfast every Saturday at our apartment complex. And God made it so that we didn't have to spend any of our own money. Before I was a pastor, Jill and I were eating in their homes. We were investing and inviting before we knew what that meant. Before, I was sharing my faith at a blue-collar job, and people were attracted to Christ. Not because of anything great about me. Every night when I punched that clock, the Lord met me at work, and people were drawn to me in spite of the fact that I did not really fit in there. I had to work as hard as everyone else, but the Lord was also at work. I was investing. God was yielding an increase in my investment of His resources. A few months ago, Mr. Steve brought to light some very encouraging trends in the world today. The fact that 6 million Muslims in Africa convert to Christianity every year. That comes from Al Jazeera. Christians in Vietnam have increased by 600% in the last 10 years. In China, 28,000 converts to Christianity every day. In 1790, 1 in 49 of the world's population were Christians. But today, more than 1 in 10 are Christ followers. That's about a 1,300% increase over 60 years. Guys, by nobody else's standards, I would say that that is a successful trend. You want to be successful, get involved where God is at work. Now, let's not forget holiness. We could spend months on this, but we only have a few moments, so make them count. In 1 Peter 1, 13 through 16, Peter writes to believers. He says this, "Therefore prepare your minds for action. Keep sober in spirit. Fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the former lusts which were yours in your ignorance, but be like the Holy One who called you. Be holy yourselves also in all your behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy." Peter is quoting Leviticus. This holiness that he's talking about, be holy for I am holy, means be becoming holy. It doesn't mean that you have to be perfect to come to Christ. You need to work anything out before you come to church. It just means once you're in, once you've made that step from death into infancy, be becoming like Christ. Be becoming more and more holy. And how do you do that? Through all of those things. Through those people that we talked about. Through loving God, through loving others, through coming to see, to coming to die, through getting in circles and not just rows, by getting those 3 people into your life, by doing those 3 things. That's how God will begin to work those things out in your life. So as the band comes up, I want to give you one last illustration. So band, if you can come up. We're going to have a different kind of ending here. It's a time of response. And I'm really hoping that many of you will just come and respond to some of these things, that some of this has hit you, and that you're saying, you know what, I've been in that stage for far too long, and that needs to end. And so whether you're a youth, whether you're an elder, whether you're anybody in between, you could pray where you're at. You could. But I think it will mean more to you. I think it will mean more to God if you will come forward. Get on your knees and just talk to God. Do business with God. It's between you and Him anyway. And with that, I want to give you this one last illustration. You want to know what religion looks like to me? Lucas, come here. I'm trying to hold it together here. You know what religion looks like to me? Hey, bud. I want you to take a pig. Jake gets the other one. That one? Okay. All right. So that one's Jake's. This one's yours. All right, hold on to this. All right. Now, come here. Oh my God, he's so big. All right. This is religion. It's a father wanting to give good gifts, wanting to teach, wanting to walk with. Is this your relationship to God? Is this your version of religion? Whether it is or whether it isn't, while these guys play, I hope you'll come and you'll just meet with your Father. So, the altar is yours. I have no final words at this point. Nobody here but you, God, these stairs. So while they play, I'm going to give you time to respond.